Welcome to the Healthy and Wealthy and Wise podcast with global sales trainer and professional speaker Lois Coffey. Each week, it is her goal to share inspiration and education for you to have the best health and wealth and wisdom for your life.
Well, all right. Happy Friday, everybody. Coach Lois here. Super excited, as always, to have another amazing guest on this live show. If you are tuning in live today, as always, you know the drill. We love to acknowledge you for being here. This is the Healthy and Wealthy and Wise program, and we do live stream in multiple places. And you guys are always welcome to comment. Also, hashtag replay if you are on the replay. We also love sharing is caring. So if you see value in today's show and with this special guest, and we're talking about a topic that is literally near and dear to my heart, because I had a huge shift. As you guys know, I just relaunched my program, my membership community. I also rebirthed my podcast. So Brian is like a great guest to kick off the new year of my show. We're heading into 300 shows, heading into my third year of this Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, and really focusing more on our spiritual truth about business and coming from the heart. So Brian, I'm so excited to have you here today. And I know you've got 60 years, as you would say, of research and development. You show up to serve humanity, to make it a better place. And in doing so, you've supported a lot of people in business and in their personal journeys. So tell us more about you and why heart-based business outperforms business as usual. There's got to be a story there.
Let's see. Do we have a couple of hours?
I know, right? I know. No, we don't.
Well, thank you for sharing the time with me and allowing me to come join you on this fun endeavor that you do. So, my story really starts with a very wonky childhood, but I won't go into all the details of what that was. It's just a kind of a brutal childhood in many ways. And so, as a young person, I started to figure out that if I wanted things that weren't coming to me any other way, I had to figure out a way to go get them. And so I became entrepreneurial fairly young. I've been doing, my first business was a lemonade stand at age 9 with my neighborhood friends. Aww. It was not a successful day at the table with the lemonade and all that stuff because of location. Busy street, nobody could stop. But we learned. And then I became a lawn cutting business guy at age 12 because I had an eye on a 10-speed bike that I wanted. I have even from the youngest of age, I had rich tastes. So I had my sights on something that today would probably be like a $3,000 bicycle. So I worked my summer cutting lawns with a lawnmower that I bought that was broken, and I repaired for a few pennies and just got into the lawn cutting business. And then in that thing, I started to learn you only have so much time in the day, so it limits how much money you make. So you start looking for other ways to make money. So the thing that was most important in my journey, though, wasn't all the smart business things and the metrics of business and all those other things. The most powerful thing that happened in my journey was learning about people and the human condition. And inside of that, very much learning about myself, because that wonky childhood that I just referred to left me curating my existence and not living with an internal compass or conversation. That was too painful and actually very challenging to do. So I can't, in this form here with this little bit of time we have left, explain how I made that transition from this sort of fear-based, curated, make sure everybody sees me the way I want to be seen world to just being seen as I am world. Let's say I made that transition. And in the process of those transitions, those transformations over the years, I started to develop a completely different philosophy about how business is really supposed to work. So I imagine, Lois, you know what the Great Resignation is, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we have people now who are, because of COVID, were either forced to or maybe given the luxury of staying home with some, hopefully they were getting some support from our safety net systems to allow them to evaluate their lives and take stock of what's going on. And the reason for the Great Resignation, in large part, is because people realized, I'm just a cog in that machine. I don't count for much over there. And people really want to matter. They really want to have purpose. And that's where I've been going with this philosophy about business for the last 20 years. And as the more recent years, even more focused on the ideas is that business needs to rest as much in love as much as a romantic relationship, a parent-child relationship, friends to friends, whatever. Love is a very, very central aspect to what's being in part of a successful business. In fact, businesses that are not moving into this area of authenticity and postures of heart-centered love characteristics, supporting humanity rather than just money, those businesses are dying. We're seeing evidence of all the time, and COVID killed a lot of those businesses. So now we're starting to see businesses recognizing what it takes to thrive. And my energy has been there for a long time. And now this is like the perfect time for me to just go ahead and focus on guiding people to getting a thriving business. That's an extension of having a thriving life and heart. And as you and I would argue, a spiritual enrichment in the process.
Yeah, I was on your show last month, and we talked at length, about an hour and a half about this topic. And gosh, there is so much to unpack there. I guess, how does one? I know the answer for me now because I just went through it. I was not connected, and you knew me before, right? And you knew that I was kind of lost, and it was because I had compared myself, the American dream. I was looking outside myself for the answers. I wasn't always like that. It just was a byproduct of same thing as you, being triggered by old childhood wounds that, as you said, were wonky, right? And then boom, fast forward as an adult, having a family, needing to make money and feeling that internal pressure. I was so stuck in my head and outside of my heart. So for someone who's listening, that might be like, whoa, I think that's me. Or they maybe just resigned and they quit, and they're trying to build their own business because they were that cog in the wheel, and likely also stuck up here instead of here. How do they start to make that shift or transition to their heart?
Well, I mean, let's first of all just say is it doesn't have to be somebody wants to start a business. They could just be looking for a career path or a professional path that matters to them. They feel important, and that those do exist. And I would argue whether or not it's a professional path or a business path, whether you're going to start as an entrepreneur or join another partnership or whatever the case may be, that it's inherent that we find a path to our authentic selves. And there's no judgment if you are not living authentically today, because most of us have never had that opportunity. Until we get there, we don't even know what it's like. We just know we're not happy. And that's kind of like the register for this thing is, I'm not happy and I got to do something. I don't know what to do. And that is a huge part of humanity. And then as far as what to do, and I would say, hey, Coach Lois, one of the things that makes these things easier is having somebody who's kind of walked the walk and been there just far enough ahead of you that they know how to guide you to the light of what's going to work for you. And so just spend the energy getting somebody who can be of quality mentorship to you that you trust. You need to trust them because they're going to be brutal sometimes and say, I'm calling you on your BS. That's, whatever it is, because a good coach will do that. A good coach will say, we're not going to do circle talk here. Let's get back to the subject, whatever the case may be. And also inside of things like I'm a hypnotherapist by training. I have a lot of other modalities that I use to support people. So sometimes, and for example, I've offered to you that your clients who may need just a little sojourn into that rapid recovery type thing, that they could come, we could take care of those things, and then they can remain under the tutelage of your excellent coaching. And then we could have a mechanism for speeding people along. There are no shortcuts, but we can cut the red tape on these journeys that if we try to figure it out by ourselves, that's a giant ball of red tape.
Yeah, I'll be honest, guys. You know my story. I talked about it on your show.
Mhm.
It was the first 6 months. I called it the dark night of the mind. I used to call it the dark night of the soul. And one of my spiritual mentors said, "No, your soul is whole, perfect, and complete, and
Right.
is like ready to win and shine your light and just go out and be this amazing, little perfect child that we were born before we got, programmed." But the mind, so I had to break through a lot of things, and I was trying to do it on my own, because I was tired of hiring. I spent so much money before trying to fix myself, right? And the journey is always within. That's why hypnotherapy is so powerful, and what you do or have done is so powerful. It was until that second 6 months that I actually got the right support and the right help that I was able to, like you said, have someone holding a mirror with love and compassion in front of me, not the old school coaches, taskmaster, and things like that.
Right. You want them to be firm, and you still need to be compassionate and kind in their support for you, because the last thing we want to do is put new wounds into the story.
And I did that. I don't know if you can speak to this. Like not ironically, this is one of the things that I learned, and I'd love your take on this. When I was coming from my not enough wound, when I was selling from my not enough wound, which caused me to be a people pleaser, bending over backwards. Thank you, sir. May I have another? If you know what I mean. Yeah. And just taking it, right. And not.
Those peddlings are real tough.
Yes. Not standing up in my alignment and my truth with my heart. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I had all sorts of, I call it masculine energy, not men, but that logic, that numbers, that push energy. I was hiring people like that to help me. And then that just made it be prolonged. So how can people, recognize that and realize that, oh my gosh, I think I'm working with the wrong person, or I'm headed in the wrong direction. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the way to know that is whether you feel at peace at the end of the conversations that you have. Many of us, even if we haven't been through coaching experiences, have probably heard this phrase: is what you focus on expands, or what persists, what you resist persists, or whatever the case may be. And I will argue that if you have been forcing things, which is a form of resistance, because you're still resisting setting your path inside of your authentic self, you're still doing it from an outside kind of willpower type thing, you will get other people in your universe who will meet you at that level. Our relationships are so commonly, if not always, mirrors of how we are showing up, and that we would need to do some extra perceptive searching for somebody who's outside of that resistance, or outside of that victim state, or outside of the other unhappiness that we're experiencing, so that we can find somebody who says, I have a path for you. And I think for me, one of the things is, when people say I'm a healer, I would say, be cautious. If they say I'm a guide, that's better. If they promise you results, be cautious. If they promise you a path, that's probably better. And then if they're selling, and what I mean by these things too is I guarantee you, if you work with me, you'll have $60,000 in your pocket by the end of 30 days. Run. Run.
Yeah, I got that path, which again, for me, is a very masculine, in some ways, manipulative path. So I get it. So I stopped doing it, but I even did that for a while because that's what was modeled to me. Again, because I was looking outside myself for the answers and trusting my analytical mind, which is not our heart. I know you said that you have so much to share and not enough time, but if you wanted to share more depths of how you self-discovered why a heart-based business outperforms business as usual, and maybe explain that concept first so people know what it really means.
Well, we would be skipping over a lot of stuff in terms of how I learned this. Well, let's just presume that I learned in a very powerful way that made it very meaningful for me to once this was revealed to me, I'm going, oh gosh, this makes a big difference. And so I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. I've made, and I'll use the word spent, millions in my lifetime. So money is not the arbiter of success, by the way. Anybody who holds that up and says, this is what makes you successful, then they probably have some miserable relationships in their reach and a lot of other stuff going on. So I want you to look at somebody when you're talking to people about success, find out who's happy. I mean, happy is probably the best success. And people can have money inside of happiness, and people can have material things inside of success. But there's so much more to our journeys. You know, we've all heard the expression, you can't take it with you. Well, yeah, you can't. And so having a nice car, that's great. That's a momentary maybe safety and comfort thing, or maybe an image thing. But I would argue that, and I'm not saying don't go get a nice car. I'm just saying that should not be the focus for us. And the way I discovered this was I made it during my lifetime. And jokingly, I shared with you, I did 60 plus years of research and development. Because my lifetime is a giant R&D thing, right? You know, so one of the things that's going to be an important part of this discussion is in my early years, I never had a mentor. I never had a guide. I never had a coach, because I had such low trust for anybody else that I said, I'll take care of it myself. I'll figure it out myself. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, it's possible to figure it out yourself. But as you just said earlier, and I can personally attest to, that's a slow ass way to go. It could take you decades. And I'm going to tell you from my own personal journey, it was decades before I got certain kinds of clarity on what it is that allows us to be happy, fulfilled, abundant. And I think for me, the most important aspect of abundance is the quality of the relationships in my journey. I would never have known you if I wasn't in this framing I am today, because I would have seen you as a competitor or annoyance or something like that in my path, because I would have been calculating everything as a transaction and how much am I going to get out of it. And, you know, I'm not, you know, so, you know, friendships and family and those things, as you know yourself, you've shared that with me on the show. And right now, those are like, that's the measure of abundance. And the ability to move through society in an easy way is also a measure of abundance. And that does include money and an easy talking style with people that you learn when you become authentic, and all these other things that take place. So you're asking in terms of the sales model. So I'm sorry, a little long circle to get around to this.
Perfect.
Then in the process of my journey, I needed to shift from that curated external imaged version of myself to one that was able to look inside and have that conversation with myself. And you probably hear people go, oh, I had to learn to love myself. That's very important, because until you learn to love yourself, you can't be comfortable with yourself. Until you become comfortable with yourself, you tend to be inauthentic. And we'd never get taught this. Parents don't, most parents don't teach us this. School certainly doesn't do that. It's kind of life that gets us there. And a coach that's been there before you can get you there a little bit more efficiently and, you know, quickly. So when I finally opened myself up to getting some coaching, and again, certain things, certain milestones along the way opened the door for me to be like, okay, this is scary, but I trust somebody enough to be my coach. And that coach was kind of what I described as kind of like called me on my junk, praised me when I was making progress, was compassionate about where I was coming from and where I needed to go, and was an extremely good guide in terms of saying, you know, helping me understand more intimately the human condition, which is why I studied therapy, because that is like one of the most efficient ways to understand the human condition and know how to serve people the best way. So anyway, love and sales is kind of where we can kind of go with this, or business and love, or whatever you want to talk about. I loosely call it a heart-centered posture. And the point behind that is that everybody is important. What we get taught in business school is the zero-sum game, winners and losers. When you talk about it from a healthy perspective, it's a win-win-win, maybe even a win-win-win-win type of thing. Vendors and clients or customers, team members or employees, leadership, investors, everybody can win in a company that thrives based on that heart-centered posture. And why does a heart-centered posture-based company or somebody working inside that arena thrive? Because they're attracting people to that practice. People are attracted to how they feel, and they can feel authenticity even if they don't know exactly what that is. Heart-centered companies that are authentically in that place grow and grow and grow and grow. One of my favorite stories to talk about, there's two stories we could talk about, but one of my favorite stories to talk about is Patagonia. They are what they call a B Corp, or a limited benefits corporation. They are not held hostage to shareholders. They are held hostage to their mission, which includes social and human-based service components to their business model. So they will take some of their profits and use it for social good. And then there are companies like Mondragon, I think it's how it's called in Spain, which is actually employee run. Not employee run in the sense of the employees maybe have stake in the company and they go work like slaves anyway. The employees actually hire the managers. It's a democratic company. And that's like, to me, that's like the ultimate of heart-centered, ultimate of human component, human valued engines. And so what we can do, we don't have to run necessarily a completely democratic company, but when we start to listen to everybody in the company and value everybody's input and contribution and show them that we value and communicate that and share our vision and examine their vision and see how they combine or align, that's when you get a heart-centered company. That's when you get a heart-centered culture. Richard Branson says, I take care of my employees because they're the ones who talk to my customers. And I think he's dead on.
Wow. Yeah, that's brilliant. I love that. I did want to acknowledge a guest who's on live with us really quickly. Deborah shared, there's a imheart.org. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a good place to get practical medic training and helps her move through life. So thank you, Deborah, for contributing from our LinkedIn Live community. We were talking about hypnosis and things of that nature. I think we were just talking about mission, vision, taking care of your team, right? Because that's what keeps us going. No one succeeds alone. And keep going with that. Or if there's anything you want to respond to that.
I mean, I could just, give me a stage and I don't shut up. But the idea here is that if somebody's watching the clock and the dollars as their front center activity, their business is in jeopardy, period. Their profession is in jeopardy, period. And that one of the most challenging things for us as human beings is to step out of that fear-based posture that puts us there in that sort of metrics evaluation and lean in on the ideas is that I can lead from the heart and not from the head, and let the heart make the authentic connections, and more people will do business with me in the long run. It may take a little while to adjust to that framework. More people will do that business with me in the long run. More people will have relationships with me if it's not business in the long run, by virtue of actually living a heart-centered life. And you could call that spiritual or woo-woo, or you could call that just practical. I don't care. It works, period.
Yeah, that's why I call myself now a transformational sales coach, because if you're not transformed within, it doesn't matter how much money you're making. I was making tons of money, 20 to 40 grand a month. And yet, my marriage was a relationship with my kids and even my friendships. So it took me a while to kind of like right that ship. And it's funny. The reason my programs also changed, Brian, and I'd love for you to maybe talk a little bit about this, because there's still a lot of people struggling with. They think their success is measured on this measurement of how much money they're making or how many clients they're serving. So people would come to me for the past 2 years as a sales coach before I shifted to transformational sales coach, which is essentially focusing on the heart mind first. They're like, I just want the lead generation tactic. I don't want to talk about that mindset stuff or that transformational stuff. Lois, I'm good. I've read Think and Grow Rich 5,000 times. I say my affirmations every day. I'm good. Just give me the strategy. And oh my gosh, Brian, guess what? Even though the strategies are working for me, because I've been in sales for 23 years. So it's like breathing, lead generation every day, sales every week, whatever. but they weren't getting the results, not surprisingly to me now. But why is it so easy for people to get stuck in that? I got to have the lead gen strategy. I got to have the perfect landing page. I got to have the perfect hair and makeup and, you know, all of these image things, as opposed to wanting to go inward.
Right. Well, first of all, I'll just we talked a little bit about resistance before. And one of the reasons why we do resistance is because we're still holding on to things that we're afraid to let go of.
Mm-hmm.
So we sort of stick to some of the things we know so tightly that we resist those kinds of transformations and changes that are going to ultimately serve us and help us serve others. And I would say resistance is the ultimate form of bypass, and conversely, bypass is the ultimate form of resistance. So what I mean by that is that we think we can intellectualize ourselves to the goal. We can intellectualize ourselves to an authentic life. We can intellectualize ourselves, just use willpower to make our heart front and center. And it just doesn't go that way. In fact, the Dalai Lama says the journey of your lifetime is from your head to your heart. Notice he has the word lifetime in there. You cannot just flip a switch. I read a book. You know, I think Think and Grow Rich has got some great material in it. But people will read the book and think, oh, I know it, therefore it's going to happen. I know it doesn't transform into heart knowledge. You got to live a certain way. You got to experience certain kinds of growth. You've got to develop certain kinds of enrichment in your journey, releasing those things that no longer serve you, because that's where your fear is, and limiting aspects of your journey and all those other things. Yeah. And just reveal the power of who you are. Like you were talking about that before. It's just like your soul is like a pure thing, and the rest of it's all noise, right? In some ways. So it's like the darkness of our mind. It's probably a little bit of a low energy phrase for me, but let's just say the darkness of our mind or our intellect, or whatever the case may be, is because we have all the trappings of stories that don't work for us, including the modern trappings of success, which is cars in the driveway and, you know, trips around the world, or whatever the case may be.
2.2 kids, the American dream.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And that could be part of an abundant life. So I'm not telling you to stop wanting that. I'm just saying, if that's what you're seeking first, you're probably not going to be happy in the process of doing it. I mean, I'll even just go boldly and say you won't be happy living the stories that other people have told you what success looks like. Your success is unique to you. And I will absolutely assert, though, that if your success does not include some sort of internal growth and development and stretch and an appreciable love for oneself in the process, the ability to live in your truth and trust that truth and trust inside of all that the power of who you are, then you will probably stay unhappy until you leave Earth. So.
Yeah, and that's where I know I love the song "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend." Now it has a completely different meaning for me, because
I was just for them too, by the way, Simon and Garfunkel.
So I was holding on to this darkness that, to a certain extent, served me. I wasn't consciously a victim, but with that people-pleasing behavior, the binge drinking, the workaholism, I didn't want to accept and love my shame, my worthlessness, my darkness. So I was just actually teaching a class on that before this, is what I learned to get into my truth, which is loving myself, having compassion for myself, accepting who I am in all of its, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly, which is a great movie, by the way. I watched that again. It's hysterical. But anyway, I was like, I had to shine a light on resistance and ask myself some questions like, why is that here? Where did that come from? And how can I love myself through it? So the resistance is our friend. Our darkness is our friend. And that's how I was able to, the Cliff Notes version, shift from stuck in the egoic subconscious wounding into my heart and being okay with not being okay, and having grace and gentleness for myself instead of pushing, beating myself up. I never let them sweat. I got all my shit together. Not really, but listen to me, really listen to me. I'm successful. So I don't know if you have anything else to comment on what I just shared.
Well, I was just say is what you're describing here is the fact that we often, again, because of stories that we carry with us that can sort of that when and they could be installed by parents, it could be multi-generational stuff that was handed down, and it could be energy in the family when we're growing up. I believe things happen in utero, and there's even room for discussion about past lives based on studies. University of Virginia has been doing studies on people who have some dramatic stories to tell about lives they lived before they were in this life. And so it gives me a lot of pause for the ideas that, okay, so it almost doesn't matter whether it's in utero, preconception, past life, genetic, generational, these memories that we use, they become our stories. And I fundamentally believe that those stories that lead to friction points in our journey, it's the friction points, as you were saying, like the darkness is your friend, or the uncomfortable is your friend. I say anything that's a friction point is your messenger, and therefore they're your friend. So invite them in, have tea with you, share a story, have a song, let them move in, embrace the non-positive that's showing up for you, so that you can learn from it instead of avoid it. Because if you avoid it, that resistance is another form of bypassing, and you're not going to get a chance to grow. You need that conversation and that lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Deborah. Deborah's chiming in again about the sound of silence. So I just want to acknowledge you, Deborah. I'd like you, because this is funny. I mean, not funny, haha, just odd. Ironic. I've been talking about, and I call it spiritual bypassing, but you can call it whatever, for the past few weeks. And it's come up a lot because when you do go inward and you consciously choose to, I've still seen people subconsciously, because the wounds are so intense, they still stay up more in the, I don't know, the woo-woo, not the woo-woo, but just like the yummy, blissful, the rah-rah, that's why a lot of people go back to like Tony Robbins events and all of these conventions and conferences, because they think, I just got to stay up. I've looked at the shadow enough. I got to stay up. And there's an essence of still bypassing. So I know what that means for me, but what does that mean for you? And maybe explain it to our audience a little bit more.
Well, I think you actually might have just hit it on the head, is that we have a tendency. I have actually had clients who go, I don't want to do all this stuff. I just want to go to the light. They're looking for like peace and bliss and love and all these things. And yeah, you can grab that stuff in moments, I will say is that this is my definition of joy. Joy is that great feeling you have after you've done a stretch. It could be physical, it could be nutritious, it could be spiritual, it could be emotional. Still, stretch is required. It's in our growth where joy is. So the carrot for going through that uncomfortable stuff is on the other side. You will actually experience not just happiness, you will experience a moment of joy that cannot be measured in the word happy, and it cannot be felt until you get there. So there's really good value in going inside and dealing with the uncomfortable stuff. Although it's uncomfortable when you're doing it, because of the stretch that comes with it, you will be so ecstatic on the other side of that. And that won't last forever, because new lessons need to arrive and new growth needs to happen. So it's a kind of a climbing up and down hills, but going towards a pinnacle. And then you may even get to a pinnacle, and then you go, oh, look at the other pinnacle over there. So now you have another journey to take place. We're all works in progress.
Yes.
Yet until you've actually had an opportunity to get to the pinnacle of one place, you're going to see any pinnacle, no matter where it is, as a daunting experience or a daunting destination or goal or whatever. So the best thing we can do is get a good coach who can work with you. I'm not trying to pitch coaching. I'm just saying I've been there, where the important part is finding somebody who can guide you to that pinnacle in the most efficient way possible, and be there to catch you when you maybe misstep or whatever the case may be, and show kindness in the process, no judgment required.
Yeah.
And just get you there. And then inside of all of this, that kind of success will allow you to get clarity in what all the other successes mean to you. So if it's going to be about money or business, which may be extension of what you do, great. If it's about quality relationships or even dating, romantics, breaths, all these other things, then that will be a much better experience for you once you've started hitting these pinnacles than it is if you keep staying stuck in the valley.
100%. Yeah. What you were talking about, totally beautiful. All on the same page. My coach called it expansion and contraction.
Mm-hmm.
You expand for a little bit, that joy you were talking about, but then you contract and you'll have more of what I call the shadow work coming up, and more things that resistance can't go away overnight. I had one client ask me, because I do a lot of shadow work: mother wound, father wound, religion wound, family of origin wound. I've done all of it with my clients in the last few months as I've transformed into my true self. And it's been so amazing. And yet they are like, I thought I already fixed that one. And I'm joking, they didn't say fix, but it's like, I thought I healed that, but now it's coming up again. I thought it was over. And to your point, it's a journey. There is no straight arrow. It's that ride. And I think that's important to remind us, because even like me, I was making tons of money in my first 18 months of my podcast. I hit multiple six figures, but then I realized something's not right. So I actually had to bust up a lot of my shadow, work through a lot of it, shine a light, a lot of the resistance, working with guides and coaches along the way to help me, hold space for me. And now I completely relaunched my business. Didn't make a whole lot of money in the first 6 months, but now it's like all of a sudden, poof, it's just like fallen from the sky. But it took me a season of hibernation and cocooning and really healing myself, and definitely caused me to freak out at times because I wasn't making as much money. But maybe you can talk about those, kind of like one of the last questions, and we'll start wrapping it up here, Brian, but talk about also managing expectations of what these seasons of transformation might look like for someone.
Okay, well, I want to start with, let's put this phrase on the table, because I feel like, let's say this is whether it's about, you can translate to what I'm saying, sales and business in the sentence, but you can translate that into quality relationships and love interests and things like that. So if you decide to pursue business and sales outside of a posture of love, you deserve neither the business nor the sales. I'll just twist that. If you decide to pursue relationships with people without learning the posture of love, especially self-love, you will not only not deserve a quality relationship, you won't get a quality relationship. So it's very important that we do the work on ourselves. And so that should be the carrot. If you're frustrated with your life or unhappy in any way, the carrot should be, I want quality relationships. I want adequate, if not, premium amounts of money in my journey. I want adventure and fun and health and all these other things. If you want those things, your best shot is to get into that place of authenticity that's so hard to understand and see unless you've started to climb those mountains and get to one of those pinnacles. And once you've had a pinnacle, then you can have everybody else follow you. So if you wanted to be a coach or whatever else somebody wants to be, so somebody could model their coaching after your coaching, because they worked with you and they got this great experience, and then they can go out and spread the word and make other people's lives better. But inside of this thing is not only do you not deserve, or nor will you receive all those things you want if you get stuck in these non-heart-centered postures, but you won't be happy at all. And that's the crux of it. If you want those moments of joy, if you want those moments, as you were using the expansion contraction thing, but what I will say is that every expansion followed by a contraction, the contraction always smaller than the expansion.
Yeah.
So what's happening is that you are moving into bigger and bigger energies and understandings. And each of those steps begins with somebody who can guide you there. Or if you want to figure it out on your own, great. But ultimately, I believe even if you try that, you are going to ultimately look for somebody to make it more efficient. So.
Yeah, we're talking about raising consciousness here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
absolutely.
That's really what this is all about. Raising your consciousness in business and in life is that expansion, and you're going to feel so much more fulfillment, so much more love, and people are going to feel that. How you show up in the world is your light, and we want you to shine your light so bright. However, first you got to learn how to put your hand on your heart, maybe both hands some days, and truly love, accept, forgive yourself for whatever the shadow is showing you. And I know, Brian, I'm going to ask you one more question. I want to put up your site. It's also going to be in the show notes. People can find you at briankbaird.now.site. Any last phrase or anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
I just encourage everybody to be open to happiness in your journey and be open to doing some work to get there. And in the end, your work will also be the work for others. So especially if you're a parent, because if you're not careful, the energy you're living with today will be imprinted on your kids by the time they get into their adulthood. And if you want your children to have less of a load, they're all going to have some stuff.
Always.
It's not going to zero it out. But if you want to give your children the best opportunity to excel in life, at the heart level especially, then teach them that and get there yourself.
Yeah, lead by example. And that's why I call it breaking generational curses, and not dissing on my family, because gosh darn it, they were amazing. They brought me into this world and taught me so much. You know, there's a phrase out there I saw the other day, you know, don't just focus on your ancestral wounds. They also gave you some good stuff too. And that's part of this journey is falling in love with your self in your truth and the good stuff that you also got. So I just want to remind people to go to Brian's website, briankbaird.now.site. And also, I don't really have any announcements this month. Just want to give you a gentle nudge or reminder. If you want to be a sponsoring, a contributor or patron of Healthy and Wealthy and Wise, as we are rebirthed into this new space, heading into 300 shows, I would love for you to go to patron.podbean.com/Lois Kofi. I'll start putting that in the show notes. There's lots of bonuses, lots of benefits if you become a patron. So please go to that link. We're going to be offering up distance healings and remote healings and doing a bunch of different things and giving you shout outs on the show, all sorts of opportunities for sponsorship. So please check that out. And as we close, Brian, I always close with this question for all of my guests, because I love to learn from you, not only with what you shared today. However, what is your perspective? What does it mean for you when you hear the phrase healthy, wealthy, and wise?
Well, first of all, I believe that joy is in the link of all those three. You can't, if you pick one over the others, you will have a level of disharmonia or imbalance. And I would suggest that everybody look at being healthy. It includes being wealthy, because you need to have some. It doesn't have to be super rich, but wealth enough that you can afford to take care of yourself nutritiously, be self-caring, and maybe physiologically with exercise and all those other things. And then wise, that's something we've just talked about. I believe the heart-centered journey is where we do end up being wise.
I love that. Thank you so much. This was great. And Deborah, I know if you're still watching, Deborah, please hit the share button. I do believe that this message is something that will resonate more than ever. Like you said, Brian, with the Great Resignation. We also have Sid. Thank you so much, Sid. Please go ahead, guys, and share this focus on the heart today, because as Brian said, and I now know personally, I had forgotten about it, but heart-centered business outperforms business as usual. And we're heading into a new era, a new earth, a new dimension, if you will. And this is the way you lead, generate, and sell, is with your heart. So thanks, guys. Tune in next week. We actually have a real estate investor who leads with his heart, and we're going to be talking about the real estate market and what that looks like right now, as a lot of people do like to invest their money and look at real estate options for their wealth. So tune in next Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific. Until then, guys, here's to your best health, your best wealth, your best wisdom. Thank you so much, Brian. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you.
Well, all right. Thank you for attending another amazing Healthy and Wealthy and Wise show. Thank you so much. Please subscribe, download, leave a review or a rating. And also, if you felt like you could benefit from some help, maybe some magnetic mind support, maybe some lead generation and sales strategy, I would love to gift you a free month of my membership. or go to bookacallwithlois.com. That's right, www.bookacallwithlois.com. And if you haven't had a one-time free strategy session with me, that's my gift to you today for attending all the way to the end. Here's to your best health, your best wealth, and your best wisdom.